This is Wild Man Z here, and here from my library tour. I think this is part four from my 2022 series of videos that hopefully somebody watches. And just going through some of the books on one of my shelves. Actually, I'm finishing off a shelf right now. And so the first book is Dune, which everybody's heard of course. It's if you've seen the movie, I mean, the book is absolutely fantastic. The writing is really good. The visionary science fiction writer Frank Herbert. I have the whole series here. Actually, this is one of the rare times when I have all the books together. Usually they're scattered about. Here are the second two in the series. How does it go? It goes Dune Messiah, and then Children of Dune. I would say these are a slight step down in the writing than the first book. They're still really good compared to most other science fiction authors. His writing is still a lot better. I would say of the two, the Children of Dune is the stronger story. He introduces the character Leto, the second, who's Paul Atreides' son. And he's a really interesting character who becomes very important in the fourth book in the series, which is my favorite, The God Emperor of Dune. Here's Frank Herbert on the cover. He's got that nice thick beard going. Back before that was everybody was wearing it. You go in a bank these days, you see guys that look like lumberjacks working there. I don't get it. They could be in Florida. They got a huge beard. But at any rate, God Emperor of Dune, really cool story. It has one of the best developments of a character I've seen in sci-fi literature to date. Leto becomes transformed into this creature that's halfway between human and sandworm. He has he's wholly human. As a matter of fact, it could be argued he's probably the most human being ever, because he can basically channel himself into any human that's ever lived. He can feel all the pain. He's experienced childbirth. He's experienced torture, warfare, and all the great things, all the exaltation associated with being human. But then on the other hand, his body is that of a worm. He can't have sex. He can't really even touch a fellow human being because of the fact that his body water is harmful to the body of the sandworm. It's really well written, a really nice case study of the God Emperor. His story's interesting because there'll be a lot of history that has passed, but he'll just tend to focus on a few days or a month and kind of draw things together that way. That's Frank Herbert's style. Here are the last two books in the series. If you're not going to read the whole series, then you can leave these two books out. They kind of stand alone. We have the Heretics of Dune and Chapter House Dune. They're both very nicely written. Unfortunately, he passed away before he could finish the final book in the series, so Chapter House Dune definitely ends on a cliffhanger. I'm at the end of that book. I finished it up a few months ago, and I was like, wow, I will need to see what happens to Duncan, Idaho at all. And, I understand that his son, Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, pick it up. I might read those books. Um, but I really like a strong literary voice, and if their voice is not suitable to me, I haven't read it yet, so I don't know. I might just read the first one and then stop. But if they're good, I'll keep reading. It doesn't have to be the same voice as Frank Herbert's, but it does have to be a good one. Haven't read this yet, but I know of some of these stories. This is the complete Chronicles of Conan. I have to put on a more serious voice when I refer to this great barbarian of Robert E. Howard. Right now, Michael K. Vaughan does covers a lot of Robert E. Howard's work. I forgot what day he does it on, but they're really fun videos. He loves Robert E. Howard. He loves Pulp Fiction. I can tell the guy's pretty cool. Um, I've only really read Conan's books in comic book form. In Marvel and then later in Dark Horse, and I have not read the whole series. I don't have huge collections of them. I used to get them on and off. I always loved them. I was pretty poor as a kid, and I can only get one, two, three comics a month at the most. And as I'm older, I have more money and I can go back. But my reading time is divided. But I do want to put more time into Conan this year. Love the comics, and I understand they very closely correlate with his original story. So, and I love the movie as well with Arnold, the first one. That second one's kind of weak, but it's still Arnold, so I love it. Oh, here's something really cool. I just got this in the mail. It's still in the plastic. It's Library of America's Ursula K. Le Guin collection, and this is her Hainish story. She's got really two major universes she writes, and she has the Hainish stories, which is sci-fi dealing with an acumen of planets of wholly human people who've been separated for some time and are coming back together through ambassadors that go to the planets or emissaries and reach out. Often they face a grim ending. I read The Last Hand of Darkness, which deals with the planet called Winter, where people are gender amorphous. They sort of take on a specific gender role at a certain period of their life cycle, intermittently, and they kind of look at him, the character. I think his name is Genry I, as sort of an abomination. I've read that book. I haven't read the. He's a normal Terran. He has normal sexual morphology by typical standards on Earth pre SJW. But this is the rest of the books in the series, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. I like her writing style a lot. She's beautiful. It's almost like if you're reading Nabokov or something, somebody who's applied themselves to science fiction. Very elegant writing. Uh, Unlike a lot, it's nothing like reading Asimov, which is very cut and dried, not very nuanced writing. In my opinion, I like Asimov, but it's a different type of very sort of bland writing, if you will. I got this book as a gift. I haven't read it yet. It's on viruses. I believe it's on the Ebola virus, the Hot Zone. It's a nonfiction work. It's a popular book by Richard Preston. It was a bestseller. I'm holding off on reading it, even though I got it from a gift from a good friend, simply because of the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I really don't want to read on pandemics or diseases right now. But I will read it in the near future. Here's a few books in a series here that I talked about one of them last time. This is the completion of the Hyperion series. Again, I have books all over the place. Here we got The Fall of Hyperion, which I did read, and then the Endymion books, which are a continuation. I think it takes place in that universe further along in the future. Endymion and the Rise of Endymion. The Fall of Hyperion was really good. It's by Dan Simmons, by the way. The Fall of Hyperion was a really good book. Not as good as Hyperion. I'm curious how Endymion and Rise of Endymion are. But that creature on the front, boy, he's one of the best villains or monstrosities I've ever encountered in sci-fi writing. He's the Shrike, and he's sort of can move through space and time, and he sometimes he just massacres people. Other times he collects them on this. He's basically, at least in the initial books, he's focused on Hyperion and this valley that contains these time tombs that are moving backward in time. But then he escapes the confines of that, and he just collects people up at random, and he puts them on a tree of pain for some reason. That's ends up being some sort of an artificial construct, but still will make you suffer like you were on literally being crucified for eternity. And holy Malvin, the reason why he does what he does is unknown. At least in the early books, it's alluded to a little bit in the end of the second one, but I'll leave that for the readers to discover. But he's always on the covers, and he's a central feature. He's sort of, I think, the manifestation of the Technocore. They're this AI that's evolved beyond humanity's constraints, and they form their own civilization, if you will. And I think he's either like a bounty hunter or something for them. I'm not really sure. Maybe he's an aberrant being who escaped them, but at this point, I don't know. And I don't know if it's ever fully revealed. These books are chock full of mystery. He's a really good writer. He uses that technique of giving you just enough information to keep you going, but you don't know the full story. And he likes to fill in little pieces. You're like, oh, but you want to know more. Very, very good. As I read this, a lot of times I try to pick up writing techniques. I'm like, he really builds the mystery into the story and makes you want to keep reading. I haven't read this yet. It's The Way of the White Clouds by Lama Govinda. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I got this book because I put the thrift books online really cheap because he was constantly, here's the Lama on the back. He looks very scholarly. It was constantly referred to in Peter Mathiassen's Snow Leopard, a book I really dug. I read that about a year or two ago. It's a work of nonfiction. It deals with an expedition to Tibet where they're looking, Nepal, excuse me, not so much looking for snow leopards, but looking for blue sheep. I think they're called Bacral. That actually turned out being closely related to goats. He goes with a zoologist. His name is George Schaller, I believe. He's a National Geographic guy and really famous field biologist, zoologist. To characterize these sheep, but snow leopards are there. Although I'll leave it to you to read to see if you actually see them or not. Encounters a lot of interesting people living in the mountains, including hermits and other people that are living in isolation. And Mathiassen ended up in real world. He's the first ordained Buddhist monk of Western origin. And he was, he's obviously very into Buddhism. He had formal training in it, and he refers to this book constantly in terms of different parts where he discusses Buddhism. It's a really nice book. I don't have the Snow Leopard in this mix, but that's a book I will be showing somewhere in here. Uh, if you like nonfiction that deals with people on expeditions and in the outdoors with a lot of reflection and contemplation and interesting nuances about the person's personal life, and he was a really interesting guy and suffered a lot of loss at that time period. He's a great writer, and I'm sorry I discovered him so late in life, but I still hopefully still have a lot more life in me so I can read all his books because he's a beautiful writer, both fiction and nonfiction. Last book to clear the shelf here is Raymond Carver's complete works. I got this from a gift from another friend of mine for Christmas and my birthday about a year ago. I read about half the stories, not because they're not really good stories, just because I skip around with my short story reading. And I don't know how to describe it. I would say he writes about typical people, often poor or lower class people, about their aspirations and things going on in their life. They're sort of simple sketches of people, but they're really interesting. My friend told me the first story I should read was The Cathedral, which I read, which had a really interesting blind man in it who had a lot of who's suave and a lot of panache, and it was a really good story. So I'm gonna keep reading this, and he was a new author to me, which I was really happy to get this as a gift. My little phone is flashing out, telling me I'm out of time, so I'll wrap it up now and wish everybody a good day, and I'll catch you again tonight or tomorrow with some more books. Take care.